Okay, how many procrastinators are in the room? Raise your hand. And everybody else is just procrastinating on raising their hand. I'm about to change your life because this piece of research changed mine. Procrastination has nothing to do with work. The people that write to us the most that struggle with procrastinating, PhD students, engineers, entrepreneurs, people that have a lot on their plate, that have a lot of things that they need to juggle, and that are analytical and thinkers by nature. Procrastination is a form of stress relief. What are you stressed about?
I want to get out of this business of real estate. I want to retire in the next 5 years, and I can't because I have not saved up. I have not gotten the money that I need to do that.
Bingo, and it makes you upset, doesn't it? Yeah. How many of you can relate to that? She said that what's stressing her out is she wants to retire. She hasn't saved up enough money. What's really stressing you out is finances and money and the fear that you have. What happens when you struggle with procrastinating, and thank you for being so honest, there's that stresses you out. Maybe you feel the same way. I mean, we felt that way. I know exactly what you're talking about. You carry around this dark cloud because you don't think you're gonna make it and you're stressed about money all the time. Or maybe your mom's health is declining and that really stresses you out. Or maybe your best friends are going through a divorce or you're going through a divorce and that really stresses you out. And so you walk around with this big ass thing on your shoulders all the time. And then you walk into work and you sit down and you've got a list of phone calls to make, which requires your prefrontal cortex. And your prefrontal cortex looks at the list and is like, oh my God, you want me to make 15 phone calls? I've been worried about the money all day. Can we just look at cat videos? I need a break. And next thing you know, 2 hours is gone. You've been online shopping, you've been looking at cat videos, and then of course you look at the 15 phone calls, you're like, I didn't make them, I didn't make them, I didn't make them. The research on procrastination is undeniable, it's black and white. Number one, all of you that procrastinate, procrastination's not the issue, it's stress. You're procrastinating to give yourself a little break at work. It's sort of like taking a smoking break almost, you know? You're just taking a break. So number one, because you're all stressed out and procrastinators are very hard on yourselves, this is gonna sound super stupid, but you gotta forgive yourself. You have got to actually have a talk with yourself where you feel yourself starting to procrastinate, you go, look, I know I really screwed up. I know I'm in a mess financially. I forgive myself. I'm just gonna do the best that I can. So you have to address the thing that's underneath it. So that self-awareness of knowing, oh my God, here's that stress again about finances screwing me over and preventing me from doing the small things that will actually fix my finances. Second thing that you're gonna do, procrastination's a habit, right? You get triggered by stress, the habit is to procrastinate. So when you get triggered by stress, your new habit is, oh, there's my stress again. I'm gonna actually tell myself, okay, you've done the best you can. It's okay, we're gonna do a little bit today. You're gonna create what we call starting ritual. A starting ritual is something that pushes you to start. The best one on the planet, the 5-second rule. So you've said, okay, there's my stress again. I forgive myself. Now we're gonna 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I want you to only work for 5 minutes. That's it, 5 minutes. Make phone calls for 5 minutes. Here's what we know based on the research. 80% of you will keep going. The trick is starting. You see, I want to break the connection between the trigger, which is stress, and the response, which is procrastination. And whenever you feel stress, which is normal, you have a choice. Here's that gap. In 5 seconds flat, the habit of procrastinating and beating yourself up will take over. Or you can close the gap, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you can make a different choice. I'm just gonna get started. I'm just gonna be okay with where I'm at, and I'm just gonna get started. Got it?
We all procrastinate. We avoid the things that we know that we need to do, and then we spend the rest of the day beating ourselves up. It's amazing. Actually, it sucks, doesn't it? So how do you stop procrastinating? Oh, simple. Just nail yourself to a chair. That's what you do. You tell yourself no booze until you get it done. That works. No, it doesn't. The reason why these things don't work is because most of us don't even understand what procrastination is. I know I certainly didn't. The reason why you procrastinate is not why you think. Procrastination has nothing to do with work. Procrastination is a stress reliever. That's right. It's a tool that you use to give yourself relief from stress that you feel. And the stress that you may be feeling right now might be stressed about money. You might be stressed about your health. Maybe you're stressed about something going on at work or about a relationship that you're in. And the way that this relates to procrastination is you're stressed out, you got work you know you need to do, but instead of doing it, you go online or you watch the highlights of last night's game or you waste an hour looking at Facebook. And when you do that, when you avoid work, it makes you feel good, but just for a minute. See, this is where we get procrastination all wrong. A lot of people think procrastination is about willpower. It means that you're lazy. It has nothing to do with that. It's all about your stress. That's why your work ethic or discipline, that's not going to solve this either. The key to stopping procrastination, number one, is understanding what it is. It's a way that you deal with stress. And number two, it's about 5-second decisions that stop the cycle of procrastinating. Because when you change your decisions, you're going to change everything. And here's how you're going to use the 5-second rule to do it. When you catch yourself procrastinating, or you feel yourself starting to avoid what you need to do, use the rule. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, activate your prefrontal cortex, and then acknowledge. Acknowledge that you feel stressed out. That's the first piece. Then you're going to use the 5-second rule to just get started. That's it, for 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. Force yourself. I'm stressed out. I get it, but I'm going to work for 5 minutes. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, sit down and get started. After you've worked for 5 minutes, give yourself a break. Watch all the cat videos you want. I don't really care. The point here is that this is a way that you can use the 5-second rule in combination with research about beating procrastination that puts you in control of your decisions. Stacy found that when she used the 5-second rule to improve her relationship with herself, there was an amazing result. She stopped procrastinating. In her words, your rule has helped me grow in ways I never thought possible. I no longer procrastinate on anything. And the same is going to be true for you. Because when you understand that procrastination is something that you do when you're stressed, and you also understand that the secret to beating procrastination, which is a habit, is to just get started, now you can use the 5-second rule to leverage all the research that will help you end the habit of procrastinating once and for all. So this is a question from Vicky. Vicky writes, I'm trying to become a fashion and beauty blogger and earn money from it full time, but I have some kind of mental block and procrastination problem when it comes to actually pushing myself to do anything related to that goal. This is something that we hear about all the time. That you have this huge goal, yet you cannot seem to push through the mental block. That you have something that you want to do full time, but you can't seem to beat procrastination. This is something that we see over and over and over again. And it's this idea that you don't ever start. You stay trapped in your head. And if you feel paralyzed, if you've been spinning the same ideas over and over and over again, then you know what I'm talking about. You see, many of you are thinking way too fucking big. You're attaching way too much pressure on the things that you're interested in. Until you start blogging about fashion, you won't even know if you like it. So thinking that you have a dream about doing it and thinking that you have this grand plan that you're going to do it full time, it is a complete and utter waste of your time to be dreaming that big. And let me tell you why. Because oftentimes, if you're the kind of person like Vicky that's getting trapped up here, the bigness of what you're thinking about is what's stopping you. What I want you to do if you're in Vicky's situation is I want you to stop dreaming and I want you to just start doing small things. I want you to go back to curiosity and less into crushing your big goals. The thing about life and business and success is that you have to be willing to start. And for people that procrastinate, starting is the hardest part. For people that worry, for people that think too big, starting is the hardest part. Folks that study procrastination talk about the fact that the only way to beat procrastination is to create what they call a starting ritual, which is a way to push yourself to get started. Because all the research shows that if we can push you to get started on something, you'll likely keep going. So, Vicky, the only way to get out of the mental trap is to stop fucking thinking and actually start doing it. And maybe thinking that this is going to be your full-time employment That's the wrong way to go about it. I want you to literally just commit to writing some sort of blog about fashion every day for a fucking week. That's it. Don't think about full-time. Don't think about the bigness of it. Actually start doing it. You may discover you don't like it, for crying out loud, but you're never, ever, ever going to advance if you continue up here. How do you force yourself to do it? Well, you can use the 5-second rule for that. You can wake up in the morning and say, today I'm committing to making small progress on this thing I'm curious about, which is fashion blogging. You can find time when you're going to sit down, and then the second that it's time to do it, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and start writing. Here's what you can expect to experience if you're somebody like Vicky who has trouble getting out of the thinking loop. The second that it's time to actually move from thought to action, you will become a first-class asshole. You will feel resistance. You will struggle with what you're going to write. You will start to feel like it needs to be perfect. You're going to come up with excuses. You're going to talk yourself out of it. Why? Well, because you're used to thinking, and now you're asking yourself to do. Why am I explaining what you should expect? The reason why I'm explaining what you should expect is because it's normal to feel those things. It's normal to feel scared. It's normal to feel like you don't want to do it. It's normal to think about doing it perfect. Letting those things stop you is a choice. So, let me recap. You're the kind of person like Vicky that's got all these big ass dreams, but you can't get out of your thinking loops. You can't stop procrastinating. You can't stop thinking about it. You get overwhelmed, and so you do nothing. The only solution is micro action. That's it. I don't want to hear shit about your big goals. In fact, for everybody out there, I don't want to hear shit about your dreams and your goals until you're actually taking the actions every day for a couple weeks straight. You don't get to talk about your dreams until you can prove that you wake up and every single damn day you push yourself to take one small action forward. If you can do that consistently for a month, then you can start talking about your dreams. Then you can start talking about how you make money at it. Then you can start talking about how you build skill around it. But until you can actually get your ass out of bed and make the commitment to yourself to do the actions required to become a blogger, or to be a blogger, not become, to be a blogger, to be somebody that's in the restaurant business, you're just all talk. That's all I got to say on this.
You see, I always thought procrastination had to do with the thing I was procrastinating around, right? Like that procrastination has something to do with work. Believe it or not, procrastination has nothing to do with your work. Procrastination is a form of stress relief. Let me explain this. So let's say that you've got some stuff going on in your life, and heck, who doesn't have stuff going on in your life? Maybe you're fighting with your significant other. Maybe mom's or dad's health is failing and it's really, really upsetting you. Maybe you've got some financial stuff. You put too much of your savings into Bitcoin, and now that that's crashed, you're stressed out about it, right? And so you go into work, and when you get into work, you got stuff to do. You kind of walk in and you got this big stress ball that subconsciously is hanging over your head. And so you walk in and you sit down, and you know you got 13 phone calls you need to make. And you also know that you've been chickening out, you've been making easy calls, and there's a bunch of CIOs or other people that are higher level that you haven't been calling. And so as you sit down to do it, and you got the stress on your shoulders, your brain it starts to go, wait a minute, well, you want me to make a call to somebody that I'm scared to make? Absolutely not. I'm so stressed out about, can we just watch some cat videos for a minute? And next thing you know, an hour's gone by. And then, of course, what do? You beat yourself up. So the only way that you can break this habit, and that's an important word for you to hear, you're not a procrastinator. You have a habit of procrastinating. Big difference. Because if it's a habit, I can teach you to use science to break it. You see, all habits have three parts. There's a trigger, and in the case of procrastination, the trigger's always stress. Then there's a pattern you repeat, and in the case of procrastination, it is to avoid doing something. And then there's a reward. You get a little stress relief. The only way to break a habit, you guys, is not to deal with the triggers. You're never gonna get rid of the stress in your life, but you can 100% change your pattern of avoiding work. So next time that you're in a situation where you feel yourself hesitate, you spent way too much time checking out the highlights from last night's scores, what you're going to do is you're going to go, oh, I must be stressed out about something. Acknowledge the stress. Then go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I want you to count to yourself because I want you to interrupt the habit that's stored here, and I want you to awaken your prefrontal cortex. Then I want you to just work, just for 5 minutes. The reason why I want you to only work for 5 minutes is because your problem isn't working. It's the habit of avoiding. I just need you to start. And here's the other cool thing. We know based on research that if we can get you to start, 80% of you are going to keep going. I have to confess something to you. I am procrastinating right now. I'm stressed out. I'm overwhelmed. My manuscript is due in a matter of 24 hours or so. And look, I'm even losing my train of thought in this video. And instead of working on the manuscript, I've become a passenger to my stress, and my stress has triggered me to take on a project. See this fridge? It would be empty. It has no shelves remaining in it because I thought the day before my manuscript is due, maybe you should spend a couple hours pulling the refrigerator apart, take everything out, put it on the counters. Why not hand wash all of the shelves there for the fridge? Because, you know, that's going to help you with the manuscript. Oh, and the piece of glass, that's going to help you with the manuscript that is right here that needs your editing, Mel. Oh my God. You know, it's so funny because the book that I'm writing, it's so awesome. I can't wait for you to read it. It's called The 5 Decisions, and it's about the 5 decisions that put you in the driver's seat of your life. Because on the road of life, there are passengers and there are drivers, and at any moment you can choose to be one. Either a passenger or a driver. And right now I'm a passenger to my stress. And the key to being a driver in your life is recognizing when you get hijacked by old patterns, when your stress and your uncertainty and your anxiety kicks you into autopilot mode and you distract yourself and engage in patterns of behavior like avoiding what you need to do. You know, interesting thing about procrastination is it's a form of stress relief. Because if I'm stressed out about the manuscript in the dining room that needs final editing, one way to avoid having to deal with what stresses me out is to procrastinate and find something else to do. Find something that lets your brain take a break from the thing that's hard, the manuscript that I need to be editing right now, and give your brain a break and relax by doing something like emptying out your entire fridge, washing all the stuff in the sink. So what do you do when you realize you've become a passenger to your stress? How do you get back in the driver's seat? Well, number 1, you got to recognize what you're doing. Number 2, don't make yourself wrong. You're human. You're going to go back and forth between being a passenger and a driver all the time. Number 3, the second you realize that you've just been hijacked, you have a choice. You can continue to clean out the fridge. Oh, look, I haven't taken the trash out either. Oh, and isn't that nice? My ADD is on fire today. Number 3, you've got a choice. You can continue to procrastinate. Choose it, enjoy it. Or you can interrupt the fact that you're being carried away by it. And you can 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm going to quickly put all this crap back in the fridge. And I'm going to get back to the thing that I've been avoiding. Because the longer I avoid this, the more stressed out I'm going to feel. Anyway, I got a manuscript to edit. I have a confession. I have been procrastinating for 10 days on something that I have to do that's really important to me because I am scared of putting myself out there and I'm scared of being rejected. And so I was just sitting here in my morning meeting with Jesse and Dara. Yeah! They run, Dara runs social, Jesse runs production, and I can't continue to make excuses and lie anymore. Not to them anyway.
Here's what's going on. I have a brand new book coming out called The High Five Habit. It comes out September 28th. I cannot wait for you to read it. I can't wait to tell you all about it. And I'm gearing up to do the promotion that you have to do when you have a book coming out. And that means reaching out to all the incredible hosts that host podcasts and begging them to have me on to talk about the book, to talk about all kinds of things. And here's what's interesting. I am scared to death to make a video and send it to my heroes. And I'm even scared to make a quick video and send it to my friends. You know that video I just sent you, Rich Roll? I was nervous to send that to you. And I know that you feel this way in some area of your life, that there's some help that you need, there's something that you're selling or pitching, there's a way that you need to put yourself out there and you are nervous to do it. And I want you to know you're not alone. I feel nervous too. I'm scared to make a video and send it to Brene Brown or Tim Ferriss or NPR or Red Table Talk or Glennon Doyle or Joe Rogan or even my friends. I'm nervous. And what's interesting about this experience of unpacking the fact that I've been procrastinating for 10 days and getting honest about what I'm actually nervous about is I'm nervous about not being told no. I'm nervous about being rejected. It's that old that we were dealing with in middle school when you walk into the cafeteria with your tray and you're like, who can I sit with? And you're afraid that nobody wants to sit with you. Because what I already do is I project my insecurities and I think, oh, well, when Tim Ferriss gets this video or Brene Brown does or Red Table Talk does, they're going to be like, why would I have Mel Robbins on I don't want her on my podcast. She's got nothing interesting to say. And so before I've even put myself out there, I have rejected myself. And that's why it's essential that you recognize when you're holding yourself back because you're afraid. And there's no simple solution for this. You just have to take action. It sucks to feel this way. It sucks to push through the nerves. And on the other side of making the video and hitting send and making the ask, they'll either say yes or no, but something better will have happened than the podcast interview. I will have placed a bet on myself. I will have leaned into the things that I want. I will have said by making the video that I think I'm worthy. I know I have something to say, and I know I would be an amazing podcast guest. So, put in a good word for me, okay? With your favorite podcast host, because I'm about to start sending a lot of videos.
I often find myself procrastinating on working on my side hustle of making online content by keeping busy with cleaning. It gives me the illusion that I'm being productive.
Yes.
How do I stay on track? It reminds me of you with the furniture.
Yes, I used to rearrange the furniture in my living room every week because it allowed me to distract myself from doing the real work that I needed to do, which was to create a side hustle so we could pay our bills. It became like a joke. So the thing about procrastination is it's triggered by stress. So your cleaning is being triggered by stress. And there's only one way to deal with this pattern. You have to interrupt it. So when you catch yourself cleaning next time, that's a moment of power because you're now present. You're like, oh my God, here I am cleaning again. Use the 5-second rule, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 to switch gears in your brain and get control in the moment. And then I want you to just do one thing on your side hustle. That's it. Drop the cleaning stuff, walk over, send one email on your side hustle, write one paragraph of content, do one thing. And here's why. Here's why I want you to focus on doing one thing or working for 5 minutes. That's it. Set a timer for 5 minutes. I'm going to work on content for 5 minutes. We know based on the research that you're 80% of the time you're going to keep going past the 5 minutes because the issue isn't that you don't know how to create content. The issue is that when you start to feel stressed out, you go to cleaning. It's a pattern that you've trained yourself to do. The only way to interrupt that pattern is to break it and insert a new one, okay? And let me just say something about procrastination and perfectionism, okay? Because how many of you struggle with being a perfectionist? Yep, I'm sure. The thing about those of you who are perfectionists is that it's not about being perfect. Perfectionism is really your attempt to be in control. And we're seeing a massive rise in the number of people that struggle with perfectionism. And I think it has to do with the fact that our culture is now so focused on performing from an early childhood, from how you do in school to being on the right club team, and then it's the travel team, and then it's the this team, and then it's recruiting for college, and the way that we parent our kids, and helicoptering and swooping down, and the pressure of college, and the pressure to achieve, and the concern that you're going to make a mistake. I mean, this has become a self-imposed epidemic. And so if you are somebody who struggles with perfectionism, you can't turn in something at work until it's perfect. You can't finish the paper until it's perfect. You can't even start with redecorating your room until you know the perfect color. That this is really about control. You are uncomfortable just being in the flow. You're uncomfortable with the unknown. And the most important thing here is to realize that this is a pattern, and you absolutely have to break free of the need to do everything right and to get into the mode of just being willing to try. Get into the mode of understanding, hey, if I turn in something at work that's not like perfect, I'll get feedback and then I'll make it right. Like in the work and in the willingness to just keep pushing things down the line, keep showing up, keep raising your hand even though you're not sure you're going to say it right, keep contributing, keep asking for feedback. You 1,000% will slowly lose the grip of being a perfectionist, because the only way to break that pattern is to realize, oh my God, I'm trying to keep control, and that's why I'm holding on to this paper, that's why I'm torturing myself, that's why I'm doing everything. The magic is in the willingness to push things forward, to try, to get in the flow, to basically say, I'm just gonna do my best, that's it. I'm not gonna do it right. I'm going to just try. I'm gonna do my best. And when I get feedback on how I can do it better, that's how I'm gonna learn. I am a lifelong learner. I don't ever think I'm gonna do anything perfect. This is not something I struggle with anymore, because I have broken this pattern in my mind and realized that all of the opportunity and magic comes from you being willing to put yourself out there when you're not perfect, being willing to do things and start things when you haven't figured it out, and understanding that when you get into the flow and into the conversation and into the live stream, that you can get into problem solving mode and you can figure it out.
So, in its simplest terms, I'm on a mission to get every human being in the world to add one simple thing to their morning routine. And it is called the high five habit. And here's what it is. Every morning after you brush your teeth and you get that gunk out of your mouth so you're not spreading that nasty breath everywhere, okay? I want you to take a moment, put your toothbrush down, and look at the human being in the mirror. That's not your reflection. That is a human being who needs you. A human being who's beaten down, who feels forgotten, who is so sick and tired of your criticism. And I want you to just stand there and look at them and take a moment, because the rest of your day is going to be about everybody else. And then I don't want you to say a thing. This is the genius of this habit. You can be on your lowest morning, which I was when again, divine intervention or stupidity. You can be the judge, right? It was April 2020, and I was having a moment in my life where I just felt overwhelmed by life. I was waking up, the anxiety had come back. I felt like life was unfair. I had lost my dream job. We were in the middle of the pandemic. My kids were in a state of huge grief and anger and frustration because university, had closed, and, now they're dealing with it. I had a bunch of like all of a sudden my business is imploding. And, don't forget, just over 10 years ago, I was in a crisis financially where my husband and I were about to lose we couldn't even pay for groceries. My dad was lending us money.
Yeah.
And so it was triggering all of that. And I was thinking this, like, I've worked so hard. I'm a good person. Like, how could you be doing this to me? Like, I don't deserve, like, just.
And you were pretty successful at that point already, right?
God, successful.
Do you know
I was the number one female motivational speaker in the world. I had a daytime syndicated talk show in the United States, so 175 shows a year, giving advice. I, had the 5-second rule book, which was self-published and a huge millions of copies sold.
But I think that's the powerful thing about this story. Even with all that success, you were still racked with self-doubt and anxiety and negative thoughts.
Because I hadn't had the biggest breakthrough of my entire life yet. And I had it one morning in April of 2020. You see, the 5-second rule is extraordinary, but it doesn't address what I believe is everybody's fundamental issue. And everybody's fundamental issue is that you either hate yourself or you do nothing but judge yourself. And this habit of relentless self-criticism and relentless self-rejection is the reason why you're unhappy. It's the reason why you're never satisfied. It's the reason why you can't take a compliment and why you're uncomfortable feeling celebrated. And it all comes down to the fact that when you stand in front of the mirror every single morning, you have this really subtle way that's not so subtle of starting your day by rejecting yourself. And I'm going to unpack this because it's unbelievably powerful when you start to truly understand this. Because if you can't look in the mirror and authentically see a human being that you respect, that you encourage, that you like, that you're cheering for, I'm going to even leave love off the table because I think that is so unattainable for where people are right now. Let's just go with, can you accept yourself? Can you like yourself? Can you see a person that's worthy of support, worthy of your encouragement? Can we just start with that baseline? Because from my research, the average person cannot. From my research, 50% of men and women do not or cannot look at themselves in the mirror because they are either disgusted by the person they see or they are disappointed by them. And for those of us that can look in the mirror, we're still rejecting ourselves because we focus on what we don't like, or we start to mindlessly think about all the things that we haven't done right or that we didn't do yet. You know, on this particular morning, April 2020, I'm overwhelmed by my life. I drag myself into the bathroom. I immediately see my reflection and I'm like, oh, God, you look like hell. I start ticking off all the things, the saggy neck, one boob lower than the other, like, you know, how exhausted I look, the gray hair coming in, how old I'm starting to seem. Yeah. And then the mind, once it goes negative, keeps going in that direction unless you're 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, not thinking about that. But so my mind's like going down the drain. I'm like, why'd I get up so late? I got a Zoom call in 8 minutes. God, you didn't even, text him back yet. And the dog still needs to be. And I'm like, the beat down, the boom, boom, boom starts. And, I don't know what came over me. But that morning standing there, could not think of a thing to say. And here's the important part. When you feel like shit, when you're overwhelmed by your life, you're not going to believe a pep talk anyway. Because it doesn't match how you feel. And so for whatever reason, I literally just raised my hand and I high-fived the woman that I saw in the mirror because she looked like she needed a high five. She looked like she needed somebody to say, it's going to be okay. You can do this. Get out there. And, from that very first one, it wasn't like lightning came crashing through the ceiling and, stuck me in the head. That's not what happened. But there's definitely a switch inside each and every one of us.
Yeah.
So think about the walls here.
Yeah.
Even when the lights are off, there's electricity in these walls. Even during your worst moments, there is vitality ripping through your veins.
There is an electrical life force within you. And life can turn that switch off, but it's still there. There was something about this high five action that felt like a flip, like the switch flipped on, and all of a sudden the energy could connect back and something inside me turned on. Now, that first morning, I didn't go, yeah, like that's not what happened. I just felt this sort of shift to, all right, you got a roof over your head, you know, your family's healthy,
Yeah.
you've saved money. It's not that bad.
Yeah.
Get out there. Like, I didn't even think those things. It was more like the electricity, the energy in me, this vitality kind of kicked in. But it was the second morning where the profound nature of what I was stepping into really kicked in. So I wake up, anxiety, ankles right up the legs, feel like the rush of, oh God, something's wrong. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, I get out of bed. I start walking to the bathroom, and it's as I'm walking to the bathroom, I'm not even in there yet, that I feel something I have never felt in my entire adult life. And it's this. You know, when you're about to go to a cafe and you're going to meet somebody you're really excited to meet, right?
Yeah.
Or somebody you really love, you know, you're going to see them.
Yeah.
What do you feel right as you're about to walk in the cafe?
You're excited. You're upbeat. You know, you're anticipating something good happening.
Yeah. I actually realized I was feeling that way about seeing myself.
Yeah.
Now, I'm 53 this year. I don't think until that morning in April 2020, I had ever had an experience as an adult of being excited to see the human being, Mel Robbins. I've been excited to see an outfit or a haircut or the way a new eyeshadow might look. But the human being, the way our kids, when they're really, really little, just love the sight of themselves, this unconditional support and celebration that's hardwired in your DNA when you're born.
Yeah.
And so as I rounded the corner that second morning, that's when the profound nature of this started to really hit me. And I stood there and I stared at the woman in the mirror. And I realized I don't think I've ever asked myself the question, what does she need from me today? I've never joined in partnership with myself. I have been so busy trying to get shit done, trying to make sure people like me, trying to make sure the bills are paid, trying to make sure everybody else is okay, trying to do all this stuff that is the stuff of our lives, that I have forgotten about the most important person, and that is myself. And again, I'm going to go back to a point that you know, we have been talking about kind of in various ways, which is we all know that we're supposed to love ourselves. We all know that we're supposed to be kind to ourselves. You can read a quote on Instagram. You should talk to yourself like your best friend. The problem is how. You know, you read a quote like that, you're like, no shit, Sherlock. How do I do it? I mean, like, what? Seriously? Right? How do you do that? I don't know. I've been beating the shit out of myself for years. How do I stop doing it? I don't know. And, you know, here's the thing. Like, logically, we know it's stupid because if beating yourself up, being hard on yourself, rejecting yourself, trashing yourself, if it actually worked, we'd all be millionaires. We'd have rock star bodies. We'd have the best marriages on the planet. We'd never have to work a day in our life. We'd be on a beach somewhere. Like, it would work.
Yeah.
But instead, we have these patterns of thinking and small patterns of behavior, like not looking in the mirror at yourself is a form of rejecting yourself. Picking yourself apart is a habit of rejecting yourself. And so when you start your day like that, which you do, and then you go out into the world having rejected your very being, this is the reason why you are so thirsty for everybody else's validation. This is the reason why you are seeking your worth in the money that you make, in the car that you drive, in the downloads that you get, in the likes that you have, in the neighborhood that you live in. You think your worth is outside of you. And I'm here to tell you the secret to your fucking life is grab that worth and bring it back home. Start practicing a physical habit, an action that demonstrates to your brain that you respect yourself, that you believe that you're worthy, that you deserve forgiveness, that you deserve encouragement, that you believe in you. And as you start to practice the physical action, the universal symbol for I got you, I love you, I celebrate you, I see you, I believe in you. When you practice this physical action, the neuroassociation that is already in your brain with the high five to yourself in the mirror takes over. It's insane how this works. The science is mind-blowing. I think this is 1,000 times more powerful than the high five habit because it cuts down to the core of who you are.
You think it's more powerful than the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 habit?
Hell yes, I do. Hell yes, because the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is a tool that will push you to take action. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is a tool you use to cut off the worries that trigger anxiety. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is a tool that you use to create a moment of objectivity and control when you're normally triggered so you can consciously choose a different response.
Yeah.
The high five habit goes all the way down to the core of who you are and how you treat yourself. And when you become a human being who has compassion for yourself, who likes you, it won't matter what happens out there.
Yeah.
Because everything in here is healed and taken care of. And so, like, you know, somebody can say to me, I don't love you anymore. I don't like you. It'll sting, but it doesn't change the fact that I still like myself. Because I practice and demonstrate it. That's the difference.
Yeah, and that's, I think, the hidden magic in the high five habit is, because I've been trying it the last few days, right?
And what did you experience?
It is powerful because...
Well, walk us through. Like you're standing at your bathroom sink.
Yeah,
and walk us through your experience.
Well, first of all, you have to take a pause from your life. Whatever you were going to do, it requires an intentional pause to go, no, I'm going to now do this action for myself. And I've got to say, before I tell you how it went, I think it would have been very different for me a few years ago because I feel self-compassion, you know, not seeking your worth from outside, from other people, from download numbers, likes, what people say about you, which was a huge part of my life.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that having put a lot of that to bed now and really feeling that I actually like the person I see in the mirror these days. So I kind of feel 5 years ago, I would have had a different experience with it, but it was still powerful because you are just looking at yourself and you're putting your hand on the mirror. And I think what it is, it's just that pause, that moment of seeing me. Like you are seeing yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I don't know, you know, obviously as a guy, what do? We're often looking in the mirror. We might be looking at our beard as we're shaving, right?
Yeah.
But you're not looking at your eyes,
Mm-hmm.
right? You're just looking at, oh, I need to shave. Oh, I missed a bit here. Let me get rid of that. And then you crack on, right? Or you look at your face and your hair, but you're not really looking at yourself.
Right.
You're seeing your silhouette. You are seeing yourself, but you're not seeing yourself, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that's what I think was really powerful, was that it's just another, like, I feel it's just another tool now, which is going to take me all of 2 seconds, if that's 5 seconds tops. It's not as if I don't have time to add that in. There's no harm in adding it in. And frankly, I like adding it in. It makes me feel good. It's like, oh, and I think it's what you say, it's the action.
Yeah.
You don't have to say anything if you're not in the mood to say anything.
I don't want you to say anything, actually. And the reason why is the neuroassociation. So,
what do you mean by that?
well, here's what I mean by that. So, when you high five someone else, what does the action of a high five communicate?
It's just a universal symbol of you got this, I see you, you're great, we can do this. You know, it depends on the situation, but it's a good feeling. It's a mutual sort of validation type experience.
Tell me about the London Marathon and getting high fives.
Oh, I mean,
What did a stranger's high five mean to you?
It just gave you, like, and that's the key. It's strangers, right? You don't know them, and they're looking at you, and you're looking at them. Or maybe you're not even looking at them. You just went through. You give a high five. It's like you've taken a shot of feel goods. It's validation. It's like, hey, you know what? We're in this together. You're standing at the side cheering. I'm running, but at that moment, it was like common humanity. It was like there was no animosity, and actually. This kind of one of my big learnings from the London Marathon actually was, and it relates to this, I think, is that that's kind of who we are. Like in what is considered a very divided world at the moment, I went and did the London Marathon, and all I saw was love, strangers giving love to other people that they didn't know, right? And how did they give that love? Through cheering, but more often than not, with a high five.
Correct. It is a universal symbol of encouragement, of love, of celebration. And the neuro association, whether you live in a culture where you've been high-fived or not, the neuro association is still there because you have seen them in sport.
Yeah.
You've seen them in marathons. You've seen teachers give them to kids. So your brain has a lifetime of programming in your subconscious that is triggered by this action. It is neurologically impossible to high-five yourself and think, you're a loser, you failed, I don't like your face. Your brain will not allow you to do it because the neuroassociation is so entrenched. It has only ever meant, I celebrate you, I see you, I got you, keep going, you got this, I'm behind you.
As you say that, Mel, it makes me think of gratitude, because when we are feeling grateful, we can't feel down, we can't feel anxious, we can't feel annoyed with ourselves. And in some ways, this is kind of gratitude for ourselves.
Correct, because the thing about gratitude, which obviously has tremendous, demonstrated, proven benefits in your life, most of us are grateful for things outside of us.
Yeah.
What I'm teaching the world to do is to unlock neuroassociation in your mind and in your nervous system and aim it back at yourself. And use this simple habit to interrupt the critic, to break the default loops in your mind associated with judgment, shame, criticism, hatred for self, and to replace it with a new default setting of seeing yourself the way you see your child, which is love. Yeah. Like my kids do stuff that piss me off all the time. And I can be upset with them or disappointed with them, but I never stop loving them.
Yeah.
And there is something that has happened to each and every one of us that as life's pains and heartaches and disappointments and setbacks sort of stack up, we stop loving ourselves. We start judging ourselves more. We start condemning ourselves more. We start rejecting ourselves more. We start trying to seek somebody else's love and approval in order to fill up this well inside of us that we've been digging because we've been rejecting ourselves. And so, it's so powerful because the action alone is what communicates it. If you're looking at yourself and you raise your hand on your hardest days, what the high five says is not, yeah, I'm amazing. Like, this is not going to turn you into a narcissist. This is grounded in compassion.
Yeah.
This is basically saying, I see you. You're right. This is hard. And you know what? You can do this. And I'm going to be here. And I've got your back. And when you send yourself into your day with that physical action, it leaves an imprint in your mind and spirit. Now, there's a couple reasons why. I don't even write about this part in the book because I didn't know this until I started doing podcasts for the book.
Yeah.
So Dr. Amen told me, who's, one of the leading experts in the brain, that one of the reasons why you feel better when you do it, no matter how terrible of a morning it is because your brain has always given you dopamine when somebody else high-fives you.
Yeah.
So these sorts of gestures are rewarded in the brain. So when you simply high-five yourself, your brain doesn't distinguish between me high-fiving me and me high-fiving you. It just sees, oh, I know what that is. Drip, dopamine. Oh, I believe in that person. The second thing that happens is that your body is hardwired for celebratory energy. This is that electricity that's in the walls that has a switch that you can turn on and off. And so, for example, when you cross the finish line of the London Marathon, what do you instinctively do?
High five someone.
Yeah, and raise your hands, right? When your favorite team scores, raise your hands. When you yell surprise at a birthday party, you raise your hands. When you say hello, you raise your arm. When you go to high five somebody, you raise your arms. When you hug somebody, you raise your arms. This is wired through your entire body. And normally we give that celebratory energy to other people or things.
Yeah.
I'm here to tell you, when you high five yourself, you flip the switch. You flip the switch and give yourself a little bit of that vitality that's coursing through you to help you move into your day.
Yeah, I see it as almost like it is about the high five, but it's not in many ways as well, because it's like if you're going down a road and the high five to yourself sets you off on a different path for the rest of that day compared to had you not done it, right?
1,000% right. So let's just use a great example that everybody can latch onto. Sport.
Yeah.
So if a team is about to play the championship in the league, right?
Yeah.
And they're the underdogs. What is the best way to send the team into that game? Is it to beat them down? Oh, you did a terrible job on the London Marathon. You're going to face plant in New York. Oh my God. And I saw your split times. We're fucked. No, that's not the best way to do it.
But that's what we do to ourselves.
Correct. And so I'm here to say, you don't have to say anything because you're not going to believe it. So we're going to cheat this. We're going to circuit your feelings.
You're bypassing words. It's like when you take like this ridiculous example, but it's like when you take a B12 supplement, but you take it sublingually, so it dissolves. So you bypass having to go into the gut, through the liver, and then you get it straight in.
Correct.
And it's got that feel to me.
1,000%. And so you send yourself into the game of life with that sort of optimism, with that resilience, with that compassion. And, look, some days you're going to laugh. Some days you might cry. People report some days you're going to just feel a little bit better. And some days you're going to high five yourself and laugh out loud from the dopamine and walk into your boss's office and ask for that raise or quit. Because you're going to remember that no matter what, you're going to be okay. You're going to remember that no matter what, you got your own back. You're going to remember that it doesn't matter if nobody says great job at that presentation that you worked on, because you can walk into the bathroom, as people have written to us, having practiced this. Hey, I did a presentation at work. Nobody said a damn word. The old me would have walked into my cube and cried and thought I was getting fired. I knew I did a good job. I walked into the bathroom and high-fived myself. Your kids can stick this in their back pocket. And it's a way to reset yourself when you start going down that negative road. And why is this important? It's important because the high five is not going to remove poverty. It's not going to remove discrimination. It's not going to remove diabetes. It's not going to remove the fact that somebody just said they want to divorce you. It's not going to remove all of the trauma. It doesn't change those things. It changes you.
Yeah.
And it changes your relationship with yourself and your ability to believe that through your actions and your attitude, you can move the needle on those things.
Yeah, I love that last point, Mel, because the similarities between the way you talk about this and the way I've been talking about certain behaviors and 5-minute habits for years, they are so connected. And one of the things I often say, and I want to just acknowledge you for what you just said, it's not going to change your life situation. If you're in poverty, you're still going to be in poverty, but you're going to be a different person. You're going to be better able to face the stresses that are in your life.
Yes.
And I think this is such an important point, right? Because I have said this before on the show, but I always think it's worth reiterating that a lot of people feel that self-help or wellness is the preserve of the wealthy and the middle classes. But actually, habits like this, yes, they'll help someone who's got a ton of money in their bank accounts, because a lot of people like that are racked with self-doubt on the inside as well. But it's also going to help someone who is in poverty, or a single mum who's working 2 jobs and has got 3 kids and is really struggling, that little micro moment each morning where she sees herself in the mirror, she signals to her brain that she is worthy, that actually she's a human being with real feelings, and for all her qualities and all her, all the great things that she's doing, that has power, right?
Oh my
and
God,
it is
amazing
free.
power.
It is free. There's not a single person, pretty much, who is listening to this or watching this right now who couldn't just either pause or at the end go, all right, let me, I'm convinced, Mel. Like, I'm going to give this a go. I'm going to give this a go.
Yeah. Well, first of all, don't rush it. Don't rush it. So don't go into the bathroom and slap the mirror and be like, I didn't feel anything. I want you to, again, as you so rightly put, take a minute and just look at yourself, because for most people, that's the hardest part. I mentioned that, I get smarter and I learn so much from every comment and people that write their stories in. And one person, Allison Bird, a friend of mine, who made my ability to explain the depth of this so much deeper, because she said one thing to me when she tried it before the book came out. She said, I think it's working. I feel energized. I said, but what surprised me, Mel? I said, what? She goes, the resistance. I said, the resistance? What are you talking about? She's like, oh, the first couple days I did this, I stood in front of that mirror and there was something in me that's like, I couldn't even raise my hand. There was this resistance. And so I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And so I, of course, put something out. Hey, to the 700,000 people on the newsletter list, anybody trying this and feel any resistance? We write to everybody that's in our little test group. Anybody feel, holy cow. It turns out that most people do not have an immediate positive, oh, I'm doing this reaction. Most people have massive resistance to even trying it. And I want to explain why, because this is extraordinarily sad. And it also is an enormous opportunity for growth, because I believe, based on having 136,000 people go through a 5-day challenge online that we're monitoring in an app from 91 countries and seeing what they're reporting, I know that this takes 5 days to work. 5 days before you have an enormous breakthrough in how you see and relate to yourself. 5 days before the chemical, physiological, neurological, physical, and psychological change starts to go, holy cow, this is crazy. This works like this. And so the resistance comes from self-judgment and self-condemnation. And I'm going to tell you a story to drive this home. For people who stand in the bathroom mirror when they try the high five habit and they feel this resistance in their body, first of all, let me say, it's really normal to think this is weird, because it is, okay? It just sounds so cheesy. For those of us that grew up with Saturday Night Live, you're going to think of Stuart Smiley. I'm nice, people like me, that skit they used to do about the guy who talked to himself in the mirror. You're going to stand there and go, seriously, Dr. Charlie and Mel Robbins, you two have lost your mind. But okay. If it's weird as you do it, that's a sign it's working.
Yeah.
So Dr. Leaf told me, oh, well, that's what it feels like when a new neural pathway is getting plowed. So if it feels weird, good, because we're teaching you to do the opposite of criticizing yourself.
Yeah.
But the resistance is something else. The resistance is the fact that every morning as you start your day, you drag your entire past into the bathroom with you. And if you're somebody who has experienced trauma or been abused or abandoned or neglected or grew up with chaos and addiction, or you've been the victim of a crime, or you're constantly having to deal with discrimination or violence, all stuff that you're not responsible for. There are a lot of people who take all of that from their past, and when they look at themselves, they see somebody who's damaged. They see somebody who's unworthy. They see somebody who is unlovable because of those things. And what the high five starts to become when you do it is it becomes literally an act of defiance. It becomes an act of strength. It becomes a sign that I'm a survivor. It becomes permission to heal. It becomes this deep sense of feeling and knowing where you are and the fact that you have an extraordinary future despite all of the pain and suffering that you have endured and survived. And then there are people that bring everything they regret, all the shame, all the regret, all that. So the cheating, the lying, the stealing, the hurt you've caused yourself or other people, the missed opportunities. And boy, did I get an unbelievable example of this in my own life. So, I was doing the high five habit myself. And during the early days of the pandemic, my husband had just been diagnosed with depression. And he's a super healthy guy. He is a certified Buddhist meditation instructor. He leads men's retreats called Soul Degree. He's a yoga instructor. He's wildly involved with our community and with our family. He's a super high functioning guy, but he's just felt heavy. There's been like a cloud there, like a heaviness to him, there's no light between his eyes. And so thankfully, his therapist finally got him to go see a psychopharmacologist and somebody to do the advanced testing. They're like, dude, you have dysthymia. You have really long-term depression. You're lucky you've been doing all this stuff because it's kept you alive. And, I turned to him at one point. I've been doing this for a couple weeks rather. And I'm like, I know I'm not your doctor and I know I'm not an expert in your mental health, but I really think you should try this high five thing. I really think it's going to help you with this depression. He's like, I'm not high five. It is the stupidest thing. I don't care what you're doing. No. And I'm like, okay, if you won't do it for yourself, would you just do it for me? Would you do it for 5 days? Because we're in the middle of researching this now. And I haven't even shared it with my audience yet. And I'm kind of writing down in my journal what I'm feeling. And I've got a couple people on the team. Would you just do it for me? He's like, all right. So he kind of did the first one, are you happy? Typical spouse thing. So he did it for 5 days. And then I asked him what he thought. And he said, you're on to something really big. And I said, why do you say that? And I had no idea how dark my husband's thoughts were. I had no idea how much he was condemning himself, how much shame he felt. I knew that he was struggling with depression. I had no idea that for the past 7 years, the man who has stood next to me at the bathroom sink next to me would look up at the mirror and see a person that he hated. He saw a person that had failed. He believed that since the restaurant business didn't work and since it left us $800,000 in debt, and that his wife had to go out and make the money, that he was the world's worst father, the world's worst husband, and he has been condemning himself every day for 7 years. And the reason he thought the high five was stupid is because you only high five people you care about. You only high five people who are winning, and he, of all people, didn't deserve it. And for me, I knew that he was struggling with shame around the restaurant business. I knew he was struggling with the amount of debt that we had and the fact that, he had, the investors lost money. For me, I had a totally different experience. I'm like, you guys worked at that for 8 years? You made your investors whole? Hello, entrepreneurship? We wouldn't have the 5-second rule without it. Are you kidding? Woohoo, we're winning. This is amazing. His business partner had the same, he was proud of what they built, proud of how hard they worked. Chris, for whatever reason, that was not his story. Yeah. His story was condemnation, regret, shame. He could only see a failure. And, you know, what was wild about that is, you know, I've for years talked Chris up. I've for years have told him how proud I am of him. You know, he was the CFO of the business as the company was taking off.
Yeah.
Like he owns half of it. Like he's an integral part of everything.
Yeah.
He doesn't see it that way. And that's an important part.
Yeah.
Nobody can heal you. Nobody can change how you talk to yourself. This is an inside job. And so if you relate to how my husband feels, I want you to understand that what Chris said to me was that this high five and pushing through the resistance is an act of forgiveness. It's an act of healing. It's an act of support and compassion that allows you and shows you that you are giving yourself permission to feel good again, that you deserve to be happy, that you deserve and that you can continue to push on and go do better and be better and feel better. And that of all people, you're going to stop judging you.
Have you ever heard of slithering out of bed? Holy cow, I'm Mel Robbins. I'm so excited to teach this to you. It will change your life, okay? If you struggle with anxiety, with depression, if you have a hard time getting out of bed in the morning, slithering is something I want you to try. It is a form of somatic therapy, and it's going to change your life. It changed mine. I've been doing it for 6 weeks. And in fact, I wanted to make this video because I posted this video about it, just a short one the other day, and it exploded online. You had so many questions, so I wanted to dive deeper. So let me demonstrate. So when you wake up and you feel that heaviness, what I would do is the first thing I would do is I would high five my heart, which I taught you in the high five habit. I put a hand here and a hand here, and I just say, I'm okay, I'm safe, I'm loved. And that hand right here and right here, it just really grounds me, and it tones the vagus nerve, which helps to flip from a state of fight or flight, dread, fleeing into a calmer place. And then I think about the fact that I'm about to slither out of this bed. I don't want to slither out of this bed. I don't feel ready to slither out of this bed. This is not something that makes me happy. This is not something that I want to do. Slithering out of bed in a moment where I'm depressed or grieving or anxious because I know that I'll feel better once I get moving, slithering out of bed is what I need to do. And so there would be mornings that I would use the 5-second rule to initiate it. So you can count backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You're under your covers, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then, I mean, you literally move in the direction of the floor. You just succumb to the resistance, and then you're going to move around. And, you know, there would be mornings, honestly, in the past 6 weeks that I would get to this point and I'd want to crawl in a fetal position like this, and I'd lay there for a minute, and then the dog would come over and lick me, and then I'd move like this. And then the more that I did it, the less I would lay on the ground. I'd just kind of roll around and stretch, and then eventually when you're ready, whatever shape you want, because it's the resistance that you're feeling, you get on all fours and you just start to crawl. And you're staying low to the ground because you're giving in to the heaviness, but you're not throwing in the towel. You're moving with it. You're moving through it. And at some point, as you're crawling, you will feel ready to just stand up. And it's almost like that sort of physical moving moves all that resistance out of you and through you in a way that is organic, it's doable. It feels like, in a weird way, it sort of acknowledges and honors the depression and the grief or anxiety or sadness or overwhelm that you're feeling. And it's super empowering because you don't have to feel energized or motivated. And there's a lot of mornings where I don't. And knowing that I can use this technique to embody and move with the heaviness inside me as a way to move through it and get my power back, it's absolutely incredible. So I want you to try it. I want you to try slithering. I'm going to answer some of your questions because you guys blew up my DMs and my comments when I posted that video. How long you been practicing the slither and why did you start? Well, I've been practicing for 6 weeks and I started because my therapist recommended it as a way to feel empowered while I was facing so many changes in my life that felt too big to bear. That even though life is overwhelming, you still have power inside you to move through the things that are scaring the hell out of you right now. And sometimes you don't have to muster up a ton of strength. Sometimes all you got to do is slither. Seriously. When would I use this technique? Well, you would use this technique, I think, any moment where it's just too much to bear. Like I kept saying to my therapist, intellectually, I know that I need to get up. Intellectually, I know that this kind of period from 5:30 a.m. until 10:30 a.m., that it's going to get better with time. But physically, I can't push through it. And I'm starting to get scared of it. And so that's when she said, I think you need to lean into it. I think you need to take an embodied approach. And so I think anytime you feel that way, whether you're on the couch or maybe for you, it's not getting up in the morning, maybe you spend so much time at night kind of unwinding from the day that you have a really hard time getting from the couch to your bed. So maybe for you, it's like an end of the day transition from one place that you're sunk into your bedroom. Have I noticed a difference? Absolutely. Absolutely. I've noticed a huge difference because I now have another tool in my toolbox. I mean, I've been using the 5-second rule for 14 years to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, push myself out of bed, force myself out of bed. This feels like something gentle and just powerful in its own way. And I love having two different things I can do. What if I have a dog who will jump all over me? It's actually great because the dog is worried about you because the dog can sense all that heaviness in you. And the dog also will probably bring some playful energy, which is probably going to make it easier and faster for you to stand up because their energy will transfer to you. What if my bed is high up or I have a wood floor or I sleep and I don't have the mobility to fall out of bed? That's a great question. If you have a high bed, roll the foot out first and then you can kind of slide down, like that and do that. I think if you sleep on the floor, maybe just roll around on the floor, right? So if you're, on a futon on the floor or you sleep on a thermarest or whatever, just roll off the thermarest or roll away from where you are so that you get kind of moving. That's probably a great way to start. And so whatever the slither or the slide or the embodiment of moving through the heaviness means to you, that's what you want to do. Let's see. Can you teach this technique to your kids? Yes, absolutely. I think it's great for kids, actually, because you're honoring how they feel. You're not trying to correct them or coerce them. You're actually creating a deeper connection with them because you're honoring that they don't want to get out of bed. And so it's a morning and you're going to slither, you're going to slide out of bed so you can have fun with it. What if you have a hard time feeling stuff in your body? I actually think this would help. Maybe it's hard to get out of bed because you are disconnected from your body. I was surprised, I was kind of scared to try this because if I already felt so scared in my body, this is going to sound weird, but if I already felt so scared in my body, hiding under the covers gave me a false sense of safety, right? I'm hiding from the world, even though I hate the feelings of my body. So there was something scary about allowing myself to slither out of that safe cocoon where I'm hiding from the world into the floor where you're open and all this stuff. And so I get that. But I've been empowered by how quickly that heaviness that pinned me to the bed leaves as I roll and move and start crawling and walking. And the more you do it, the more you'll notice the faster you go from like crawling to actually standing up. I'm gonna do it the questions. Oh, we've got one more. Can I use somatic therapy in other areas of my life? Absolutely. Like somatic therapy, I believe, is just using your body as a way to move through things, whether it's meditation or it's deep breathing, or I would imagine that the cold exposure therapy and the ice baths that I do are a form of somatic therapy, yoga, regardless of what form you practice, Tai Chi, even going outside, hiking, spending time in nature, deeper breathing. Those are all forms of somatic therapy that we all need to integrate more into our day-to-day life. In this video, I am going to teach you not one, but 2 research-backed, science-supported tools you can use in order to get out of bed when the alarm rings, in order to beat the anxiety, dread, or depression that pins you down, because I'm sure you know that the second you get out of bed and you get moving and you start your day, you start to feel better. Oftentimes, laying in bed thinking about your problems is the worst place that you can be. And so the other reason why I wanted to make this video is because a little while ago, I posted this video of me online, a short little video demonstrating how I slither out of bed. And slithering out of bed is a brand new technique that a therapist that I'm working with taught me how to do, because the anxiety that I was feeling in my life was so overwhelming, I was having a hard time getting out of bed. So, what are we going to cover in this video? Well, I'm going to cover 2 things that you can do to help you push through any anxiety, overwhelm, depression, whatever is like keeping you pinned in bed, okay? We're going to talk about the 5-second rule, which is what I would call a neck up tool. It's a tool that works on your mind and gives you control over your thinking so that you can take control and force yourself out of bed. And then I'm going to demonstrate what slithering out of bed looks like, which is what my therapist refers to as a neck down embodied tool that will help you on those days that you just can't force yourself to do it. Okay, so let me demonstrate both ways. So first we're going to talk about the 5-second rule. So, and I've got a bunch of your questions here because boy, oh boy, did you guys love that slithering video. So you're in bed. And for me, the bed is my favorite place to be, okay? I just love being in bed. And this isn't even my bed. This is a bed in a rental. We're here at the beach for a little bit, and this is the bed in the rental. So it's not even my bed. I still love this bed. So you're sleeping, right? And so for me, I'm somebody who has struggled with anxiety for probably 4 decades. I think if you can be, I should probably just sit up and talk to you. I think if you should be, we only just met. I shouldn't be laying down as I'm sharing this with you. If you could come out of the womb having a panic attack, that was me. I was the kind of kid who was always nervous, had a worried stomach. I got sent home from every camp I went to because I was homesick. And I also experienced sexual abuse when I was 9 years old. In the middle of the night at a sleepover, an older kid climbed on top of me and I disassociated. I literally left my body. And the next morning, after it happened, I woke up and I just felt this overwhelming sense of dread. I knew something bad had happened. I was scared. I was overwhelmed by it. And I have to tell you, and I share this because it's such a common experience, there are very few mornings in the last 44 years since that initial morning where I have woken up and felt like okay and calm. Most mornings, I wake up and my body still has that stored sense of dread in it. Now, About 13 years ago, when my anxiety was really bad, as you can tell, it's not very bad right now, I invented something I call the 5-second rule. And the 5-second rule is very simple. The moment you hear that alarm ring and you feel the resistance or the hesitation pinning you down, you're just going to count backwards. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay? And then you're going to move. And so I started counting 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I had to launch myself out of bed every morning. And we call this a neck up approach because you're using your thinking and your mental power to create the strength and discipline to push through the resistance you feel to getting out of bed. Now, you're not going to want to do this. I get it, because you're cozy. You also wake up in the morning and your cortisol levels are their highest. If you have any kind of stored trauma in your body from abuse or from growing up in a chaotic household, you probably feel a sense of overwhelm every morning. That's normal. It's okay. You can still get out of bed. If you're not a morning person and you just hate getting up because you're cranky, you can still get out of bed, and the 5-second rule will help you. Here's how you do it. So the alarm goes off, right? I typically sleep like this. I burrow. The second you hear the alarm go off, you're going to count backwards. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then you're going to throw the sheets off, put your feet on the ground, and start your day. Walk into the bathroom. Okay, that's what you're going to do. You're going to start moving. So you count backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That moves you from the subconscious part of your brain, where your habit of overthinking and hitting the snooze button and feeling heavy and laying in bed and thinking about all the things that are wrong in your life and dreading your day, which only makes you want to go, I don't want to get up. When you go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you cut off those thinking loops. You activate your prefrontal cortex. It draws your focus to this part of your brain, and it gives you a moment where you can choose. The movement's critical. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Put your feet on the floor. Start moving, and you will feel in control. Okay, you'll feel that resistance leave your body. And what's super cool about practicing the 5-second rule in the morning is that resistance that you feel going from a comfortable, safe, just cozy place in your bed and learning how to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, push yourself to choose a different, harder behavior, namely getting up. When you build the muscle of being able to push through the resistance and the dread, you can do it anywhere in your life. So if you're at a meeting at work and you feel nervous about speaking up, if you've been practicing the 5-second rule in the morning by pushing yourself out of bed and getting your day started, that little skill of courage in the morning is a skill you can now tap into to have courage at work, to speak up in meetings. You can use that same skill, pushing yourself out of bed, to push yourself off the couch and out the door to go for a walk. You can use that same skill in the morning of pushing yourself out of bed to push yourself out the door and force yourself to go hang out with friends, even though you feel like, you'd rather kind of stay in because you're feeling a little nervous about it. So that skill of recognizing those moments where you start to give in to resistance and doubt and overwhelm and anxiety, and practicing this little countdown that switches gears in your brain and then moving, that is a skill that will pay dividends far beyond helping you start your day and set your day up, which is so important because on those days that you actually get out of bed and you do a few simple habits in the morning to set yourself up for success, your whole day's better. Okay, so that's the 5-second rule. If you want to learn more about that, you should listen to the 5-second rule audiobook on Audible. But now let me teach you this second technique. The second technique is called slithering. So I was introduced to slithering out of bed very recently. I've only been practicing slithering out of bed for about 6 weeks. And what had happened in my life is I had had a bunch of major life changes go down. My husband and I had sold a family home of 26 years and we're moving to a very rural area, which is a huge change. I was making major changes in my business, which were very, very confronting. I had one of our kids have a bit of a mental breakdown, and as a parent, that was terrifying. And all these things happened literally within about a 5-day window, and I just felt knocked over by life. And the other fact is that I think that for me personally, trying to navigate my business and my family and my mental health and so many changes through the pandemic and running a company, it's just beat the heck out of me. And after 2 years, I was sort of paper thin in terms of my emotional resilience. And so when our house sold and I freaked out, and our son started having panic attacks and I freaked out, and then all kinds of changes happened in my business and I freaked out in a 4-day window, I had an empty tank in terms of emotional resilience to be able to handle it. And I started experiencing these massive waves of anxiety. I hadn't experienced anything this terrifying in 23 years. That's the truth. And I would wake up every morning and I'd feel the anxiety start here, and it would just go all the way up my body and up my neck, and I would feel pinned down with terror. What have I done? Why did we sell the house? I'm not going to be happy. I'll never see my kids. How are we going to help our son? I'm really scared he's not going to be okay. What do I do if something happens to him? How am I going to handle it? Like, just the churn of angst and worry and concern and fear. And I was trying to count backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. But the depression and the changes and the overwhelm were too much. I couldn't push through the heaviness that I felt. I felt like there was like a semi-truck parked on me every single morning, the weight of the world. And so my therapist said, Mel, between all these changes and the anxiety it's provoking and the depression that you're feeling and the grief that you're feeling, closing such a big chapter by selling your family home, and the fact that you're in menopause, this is a tsunami that's going on in your body and your spirit and your emotions. And she said, the 5-second rule is wildly effective, but it's a neck up approach. You need a neck down body approach to this. And it had never occurred to me that there was a tool that would embody your strength. Instead of mustering through something, which is what the 5-second rule is so effective in doing, giving you that push, that moment of courage, that moment of motivation, there is a more embodied approach that you can take in these moments where you don't have the energy. And so you surrender to what's happening. Wait till you see this. It's really weird and it's really cool. And I believe that this is called somatic therapy. And there's lots of types of somatic therapy, from meditation to people shake and they tap. But this is an embodied approach to those mornings where the depression, the problems in your life, the sadness that you feel, the grief, the anxiety, it just is too heavy to bear. You are going to give into it. You're going to surrender to it. You're going to slither and fall out of bed. Because if you think about it, slithering to the ground is succumbing to the heaviness, isn't it? You're moving with the resistance. And I'm going to demonstrate it in a minute. So you're going to move with the resistance. And then you're going to roll around on the floor in any kind of shape that feels to you like the resistance and heaviness in your body. So you might roll around in a ball, you might stretch out, you might writhe. And then as you're rolling around, at some point, you will feel ready to roll onto your hands and knees. And then get this. Then you're going to crawl. And you're going to start to crawl across the floor toward the bathroom. And then at some point, you're just going to be ready to stand up. It is the strangest, most amazing thing. And so I've been practicing this for about 6 weeks. And I'm now at the point where I don't really feel that anxiety in the morning anymore. The slithering has really worked. I don't dread the feeling because I know what to do if counting backwards isn't enough. So let me show you slithering, this sort of embodied approach to getting out of bed. So when you wake up, and you feel that heaviness, what I would do is the first thing I would do is I would high five my heart, which I taught you in the high five habit. I'd put a hand here and a hand here, and I just say, I'm okay, I'm safe, I'm loved. And that hand right here and right here, it just really grounds me and it tones the vagus nerve, which helps to flip from a state of fight or flight, dread, fleeing into a calmer place. And then I think about the fact that I'm about to slither out of this bed. I don't want to slither out of this bed. I don't feel ready to slither out of this bed. This is not something that makes me happy. This is not something that I want to do. Slithering out of bed in a moment where I'm depressed or grieving or anxious because I know that I'll feel better once I get moving, slithering out of bed is what I need to do. And so there would be mornings that I would use the 5-second rule to initiate it. So you can count backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You're under your covers, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then, you literally move in the direction of the floor. You just succumb to the resistance, and then you're gonna move around. And, there would be mornings, honestly, in the past 6 weeks that I would get to this point and I'd want to crawl in a fetal position like this, and I'd lay there for a minute, and then the dog would come over and lick me, and then I'd move like this. And then the more that I did it, the less I would lay on the ground. I'd just kind of roll around and stretch, and then eventually when you're ready, whatever shape you want, because it's the resistance that you're feeling, you get on all fours and you just start to crawl. And you're staying low to the ground because you're giving in to the heaviness, but you're not throwing in the towel. You're moving with it. You're moving through it. And at some point, as you're crawling, you will feel ready to just stand up. And it's almost like that sort of physical moving moves all that resistance out of you and through you in a way that is organic, it's doable. It feels like, in a weird way, it sort of acknowledges and honors the depression and the grief or anxiety or sadness or overwhelm that you're feeling. And it's super empowering because you don't have to feel energized or motivated. And there's a lot of mornings where I don't. And knowing that I can use this technique to embody and move with the heaviness inside me as a way to move through it and get my power back, it's absolutely incredible. So I want you to try it. I want you to try slithering. I'm going to answer some of your questions because you guys blew up my DMs and my comments when I posted that video. How long you've been practicing the slither, and why did you start? Well, I've been practicing for 6 weeks, and I started because my therapist recommended it as a way to feel empowered while I was facing so many changes in my life that felt too big to bear. That even though life is overwhelming, you still have power inside you to move through the things that are scaring the hell out of you right now. And sometimes you don't have to muster up a ton of strength. Sometimes all you got to do is slither. Seriously. When would I use this technique? Well, you would use this technique, I think, any moment where it's just too much to bear. Like I kept saying to my therapist, intellectually, I know that I need to get up. Intellectually, I know that this kind of period from 5:30 a.m. until 10:30 a.m., that it's going to get better with time. But physically, I can't push through it. And I'm starting to get scared of it. And so that's when she said, I think you need to lean into it. I think you need to take an embodied approach. And so I think anytime you feel that way, whether you're on the couch or maybe for you, it's not getting up in the morning, maybe you spend so much time at night kind of unwinding from the day that you have a really hard time getting from the couch to your bed. So maybe for you, it's like an end of the day transition from one place that you're sunk into your bedroom. Have I noticed a difference? Absolutely. Absolutely. I've noticed a huge difference because I now have another tool in my toolbox. I mean, I've been using the 5-second rule for 14 years to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, push myself out of bed, force myself out of bed. This feels like something gentle and just powerful in its own way. And I love having two different things I can do. What if I have a dog who will jump all over me? It's actually great because the dog is worried about you, because the dog can sense all that heaviness in you. And the dog also will probably bring some playful energy, which is probably going to make it easier and faster for you to stand up because their energy will transfer to you. What if my bed is high up, or I have a wood floor, or I sleep and I don't have the mobility to fall out of bed? That's a great question. If you have a high bed, roll the foot out first, and then you can kind of slide down, like that, and do that. I think if you sleep on the floor, maybe just roll around on the floor, right? So if you're, on a futon on the floor, or you sleep on a thermarest or whatever, just roll off the thermarest or roll away from where you are so that you get kind of moving. That's probably a great way to start. And so whatever the slither or the slide or the embodiment of moving through the heaviness means to you, that's what you want to do. Let's see. Can you teach this technique to your kids? Yes, absolutely. I think it's great for kids, actually, because you're honoring how they feel. You're not trying to correct them or coerce them. You're actually creating a deeper connection with them because you're honoring that they don't want to get out of bed. And so it's a morning and you're going to slither, you're going to slide out of bed so you can have fun with it. What if you have a hard time feeling stuff in your body? I actually think this would help. Maybe it's hard to get out of bed because you are disconnected from your body. I was surprised, I was kind of scared to try this because if I already felt so scared in my body, this is going to sound weird, but if I already felt so scared in my body, hiding under the covers gave me a false sense of safety, right? I'm hiding from the world, even though I hate the feelings of my body. So there was something scary about allowing myself to slither out of that safe cocoon where I'm hiding from the world into the floor where you're open and all this stuff. And so I get that. But I've been empowered by how quickly that heaviness that pinned me to the bed leaves as I roll and move and start crawling and walking. And the more you do it, the more you'll notice the faster you go from crawling to actually standing up. I'm gonna do it the questions. Oh, we've got one more. Can I use somatic therapy in other areas of my life? Absolutely. Somatic therapy, I believe, is just using your body as a way to move through things, whether it's meditation or it's deep breathing, or I would imagine that the cold exposure therapy and the ice baths that I do are a form of somatic therapy, yoga, regardless of what form you practice, Tai Chi, even going outside, hiking, spending time in nature, deeper breathing. Those are all forms of somatic therapy that we all need to integrate more into our day-to-day life. Hey, it's Mel. Thank you so much for being here. If you enjoyed that video, by God, please subscribe because I don't want you to miss a thing. Thank you so much for being here. We've got so much amazing stuff coming. Thank you so much for sending this stuff to your friends and your family. I love you. We create these videos for you, so make sure you subscribe. Mwah.